Let's do
All
it.
right, cool. All right, so hey everybody, Joe Troyer here, and I have a very special guest with us, Karla Pepis, which I'll be bringing on in just a second. I'm really excited to do this interview with Karla. It's been a long time in the making. We're going to be talking about her local agency and how long she's been running her agency and what she used to be doing in terms of prospecting that was working, but she was probably working a little bit too hard, right? And what she's doing now that's working really, really well, and the results of then versus now, and kind of what she's been up to. It's a really, really cool story, and I know everybody that watches this hangout, whether you're live here on with us or you're watching the recording, that you're going to get a ton out of this. So, Karla, without further ado, why don't you say hello to everybody?
Hi, thanks, Joe. Excited to be here.
Definitely, definitely. Awesome to have you. So let's start out. So Karla used to work for an agency, and then she split off and started her own agency. Karla, how long ago was that? Can you give us kind of that story a little bit, if you will?
Yeah, of course. So, as you mentioned, I did used to work for an agency, and I liked my job. I wasn't one of those people who every single day was just miserable and dreaded going into work. But I wasn't fulfilled, and I wasn't as happy as I knew I could be. And I will say that discontent was rapidly growing to the point to where I knew that I was going to become one of those miserable people if I didn't make a change. So with that in mind, and of course being around Costas and all the talented entrepreneurs that he knows, like yourself and Ben, I could really see how if you did break away, do something on your own, you could accomplish all the things I really wanted. Because I enjoyed working, I enjoyed helping clients, but I also really wanted to have flexibility, freedom, that life-work balance was really important to me. So with Costas, of course, his support, and in the process, I decided I was ready to take that leap. I had been at that particular agency for about 6 years. And it was a media agency, so we worked a lot with traditional radio, and then we also did digital, and that was more my area. And so I'd already, had an idea, the understanding of the products, but I really, again, wanted to do it for myself. Just again with those values and life-work balance. So it's been, as of today, it's been almost 2 years, not quite 2 years, but almost, that I started and did this. And kind of took that leap of faith, if you will. And it's scary and it's hard, especially if you've got a job that is paying you a decent salary. It's scary to walk away from it, but I would do it in a heartbeat any other time. Again, I mean, even though like it is a challenge that first year, I tried really hard to pay myself as little as possible, so I had the money in the business. Of course, lessons learned. You go through, you figure out some things that works better for you and gets you some clients, and other things where you spend a lot of time and energy and it's wasted, or it gets you the wrong type of client. So it's definitely been a learning experience this last year and a half or so.
Cool. So that's definitely what I want to talk about is kind of the prospecting side, because I know that you've done a ton of different things when it comes to prospecting, from starting your own agency and in what you were doing immediately to kind of get traction and what you kind of immediately led with, up until now, and kind of what you've been doing with some of the automation and things that have kind of changed things for the better for you. So if you could help us understand kind of what kind of businesses that you're targeting, and then kind of the progression, if you will, from the beginning, right, until now, and what you're doing in terms of prospecting, kind of the results that you've been getting.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started out being a new business, I told myself I didn't want to be too picky. If there was an opportunity, I wanted to be open to it. And I wanted to focus on medical and healthcare, but again, I was still like, okay, if someone else comes along that is still, somewhat qualified, I'm open to taking them in. So starting out and coming from my background, cold calling was a big part of it. I'd had to do it in the past. I hated it. I don't really know anyone who likes cold calling, but I used to have to do that, sit in a room, call, and it's really, at that point, it was really frustrating, and even doing it for yourself, it's still frustrating, and you have to give yourself daily pep talks to keep going, but I did a lot of that. I'd get like the Clipper magazines or those little coupon mint. That's what we have here in Nashville, and I'd go through and look for prospects that way, trying to call people, trying to get the email address. Early on, one thing that I did that, it got a little bit of results, but certainly not for the time and energy involved. I went and got cupcakes because one of the big challenges in working with the businesses I go after, which are again are local businesses, and in this case for the cupcakes, I went after local medical practices. So I wanted to get past that gatekeeper because it's always hard to like get through them. So I figured if I bribe them with a lovely cupcake, maybe then they would at least like pass my information on to the decision maker. And I tried that, and I drove around all over our town, neighboring cities, so you spend a lot of time and energy running in. And the only time that ended up working is when I gave the cupcake to the decision maker and could have that conversation with them. So once again, the bribery did not work. A lot of energy trying to just find a way to stick out and get in front of people. I did a lot of emails. I created direct mail pieces that I mailed to people, went to networking events, pretty much anything that I could think of. I was trying to do it just to see what would work and what would get me the right kinds of prospects and the right types of clients that I wanted to get that process started. And it was really manual, really time consuming. Again, it's you at least have the joy of knowing you're doing this for yourself, or you're doing it to increase your commission, if you're doing it for a company per se. But it was really a challenge. Running around trying all these different things, not knowing what was working, getting one drop in the bucket here, one drop in the bucket there, but nothing consistently. So that was really the manual process, I guess I would say, doing a lot of things that can work, but they are slow and they take a lot of time and energy.
I would say too, not just slow in time and energy, but they're kind of reactive campaigns, right, versus kind of proactive. And when I talk to my students and the people that I help build their agencies, the big thing I always focus on with them is making sure that they really understand the difference between a proactive marketing campaign, right, versus a reactive. Not waking up one day and going, crap, 2 clients just canceled, or I just lost 2 clients. I need to get more revenue in the door now. Instead, always thinking about that in the future and having marketing campaigns that are consistently bringing in, new leads and new prospects for you that that you can turn into actual clients.
Yes, I totally agree with you, Joe, because really doing what I was doing is what every other salesperson out there, and whether it's marketing, colored printers, a banner sign, whatever it is, that's what everyone's doing, because that's what companies tell you to do. I mean, that's what I used to tell the people I worked with in sales to do. And so it is very, it's certainly not that proactive. You're just having to respond to the fact of, oh, shoot, I need clients or I need money. It's not that system that's always generating, qualified prospects that you can turn into clients for you. So again, you're having to give yourself that constant pep talk to stick with it and stay positive and to keep trying and hang in there. Once you get so many contacts with a person, they'll close. I think I read somewhere that it takes like 5 to 12 times of reaching out to a prospect these ways to get them to actually become a client. And that's really hard if you're having to do that manually. If you've got a list of 100 people and you've got to touch them 10 times, that's a lot of effort in being reaction oriented.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I kept hearing you saying, Karla, was qualified, right? So can you tell us a little bit about, for you, what a qualified client is? What is it that you are specifically looking for? Everybody kind of has a different opinion of that and kind of has personal criteria that they work with in terms of, what is a qualified prospect. Would you just touch on that for a second?
Of course. So for me, initially I was, and this was something, again, as the business kind of developed, I narrowed in more my focus. But initially I was really offering people anything when it came to online marketing. So whether they needed a website or if they needed SEO or paid search or social media or email, we really I wanted to have everything available for them. And I realized that really the area that one was most profitable for me, of course, then became something I wanted to focus on, but that was social media. So social media really became the area that I wanted to zero in on, and that's when I also really started saying, okay, I'm not going to take these other industries that aren't either healthcare related, medical, dental, something of that nature. So for me, when it came to qualifying a prospect, I wanted them to be someone who had a need for social media, and typically either that meant that they had no account or they had an account that had under, like, 1,000 followers, so that I knew that they would at least, knew that it was important if they had it set up but needed help in getting it where it was going or where it should go. And I also had a certain budget in mind. And starting out, and I've increased this since, but starting out, I was doing about 400 to 500 a month. So this was every month they'd have to pay. And now we've increased it to $1,000 a month. And it was funny because once we increased the price, we actually got more clients. Funny how that works. Because again, at the lower price point, we had a lot of people who were like, "Oh, this is my only $400 or $500," and so it was a bigger challenge dealing with that type of client as well. And certainly, we value everyone's money. I'm not saying that was chump change, but when people are putting all their hopes and dreams on it, they're a lot more stressful of an account to work with. So initially, again, we were looking for a little bit smaller price point. Now we've kind of increased it when I'm looking. I'm looking for people who really have, $1,000 that they can spend and not feel like it's breaking the bank with them in every month. Because reoccurring is really important to me. I don't want to have to go out and every single month find so many new people, and yes, you may lose people, so you need to have that proactive system, but my goal is to pile on opposed to having to start from ground zero every single month.
Okay, so the big qualifications you got in there is something in the medical field, obviously. You're looking for people for social media services specifically. So kind of your criteria, if I heard right, were under 1,000 followers and kind of either a stagnant page or one of those, right?
Yeah, yes, that's correct.
And then last was that they could spend that $500 a month, or now that $1,000 a month. And I think that's a great point. I mean, we used to flat out ask customers when we were talking with them, when we would put out our budget range before we even had our meeting with them, we would ask them, is this budget okay? And if we got any pushback or anything besides just an immediate yes, my response was always something to the effect of, will this 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever the budget was, right? Will this, X dollars per month make or break your business? And if they said yes, I immediately was getting off the phone, right? Because just like you said, we can't be the do or die for that business. Per se, because if 1 month they don't get enough clients, I mean, it could literally be closing up shop.
Yeah, and that's what I found too. And again, and I know everyone cares about their clients, but I always took it on very personally. Like anything that we're doing, I really wanted to be sure that expectations were clear. They knew what we were going to deliver. That I did everything on my end to do that. And I didn't. And I really wanted to partner with people who I liked. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that you guys are always perfect and this or that, but people who I knew were genuinely good people who I could trust, and very much being a small business, I did see it as a partnership, choosing the right people, because if not, I knew they would drain me and drain my time. And I definitely had some calls with prospects who responded to things we did, but similar to your story, I found the same thing just with talking with them. I could tell they really weren't going to be that long-term client that I wanted, and that's really what I wanted. I knew if I could just build up the foundation properly at the beginning, it would make my life a lot easier in the future. Not nearly as stressful dealing with those clients.
Definitely, definitely. So any tips on qualification before you talk to the client? Is there anything that you did or that you would suggest, or anything that you do now, right, to get some insight if that budget is going to be an issue or not? Or do you just kind of let all the leads come in and then from there kind of filter down?
Yeah, well, it's a combination. So certainly, one, talking to the decision maker is the first thing I do in qualifying. And if I can never get to the person who's actually going to be able to give their approval, write the check, then I pretty much know I'm wasting my time, because there's a lot of really nice and polite gatekeepers who are going to say, oh, thank you for the information, we'll get back to you, or yeah, they're going to review it. And the truth is, those people just don't want to say, we're not interested, when really they're doing you a disservice by not telling you that so you can move on. So that was kind of one, as far as one thing that I've learned, really making sure you can have that relationship with the decision maker. And then when it comes to qualifying from a budget standpoint, I would make sure that also came up in the first conversation too, because again, if someone's only got $100 or $50, they're not a fit for my service, and I don't want to spend my time and energy or their time and energy trying to convince them otherwise, because then the relationship really feels unbalanced. If I've sat there and like strong-armed them into doing something that maybe wasn't right for them, I really want to feel that this is the right partnership for both of us. So I agree with you in that that always came up in the first conversation as well, whether it was, you know, a conversation via the phone, in person, or email, and they would immediately give you feedback one way or another that you could tell if this is someone who's going to be okay with that. And most people, if the value is there, they are okay with it. I think sometimes I mean, I know myself, I've been this way before, and I think other people too, where you're a little bit nervous to talk about money so early on, or you're afraid, you know, hey, I just found this big prospect, I don't want to shut them down by asking for too much. But that really is key. I mean, you're not working for free, so you do need to put that out there, make sure that they're a fit, that they can pay you for the value of your time and your services. And I think the sooner you do that, that helps a lot in the qualification process as well.
Cool, definitely, completely agree. I mean, I always ask, you know, in the beginning at least, if I can show you the return, no matter what kind of return I'm looking for, I have some type of general idea for the client. You know, is that an okay budget for you, right? If I can show you the return, are you open to spending X with me? Yes, okay, great. No, or, you know, do I have to even sell myself further right now? If so, it's probably not going to work out long term, like you said. Looking for, you know, more longer term clients as well. So cool. So how long were you doing kind of this side of the prospecting before the evolution came to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I did this for several months, probably the first 6 months or so of the business before it was like we
Okay.
got to do something different. And again, I would get a few bites in this, and I got a few, you know, good clients, but again, not for, you know, what it took to get in 6 months, now you can get in 1 month. And so
Yeah.
it just totally changed the process. And I agree, just to go back to one thing you quickly said on qualifying, another thing that I always did was talk about the lifetime value of the customer. If we can get somebody here, what would they be worth? And that made a difference. Again, with medical, you know, typically people would spend, even if they only went to a doctor once a year, you know, they would spend a couple $100 that visit. So I always tried to say, okay, if we got, you know, 1 to 3 patients a month or new contacts, what would that be worth? And really trying to, you know, of course, we want to get as many as possible, but setting those realistic expectations. But switching back, yeah, this was about a 6 month period of doing just all that I knew, which was very manual, you know, cold call, traditional sales, just trying to do what everybody else was doing to get your foot in the door and to get your name known.
Cool, cool. So let's talk about this transition and how this came about to what you're doing now. Can you tell me the story or how this kind of came to be? I know that I think like some of the latter part of the story, but I don't know how you kind of stumbled upon this or kind of how this evolved.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of going back to the original point of why I wanted to have my own business is I really wanted life work flexibility. I think it's so easy for us to get stuck in this, you know, we have to go to work, we have to do it this way, and then before you know it, you're tired, you're cranky, you know, your spouse or your significant other, by the time you get home, you know, you've left your best at the office, so they get whatever's left over. So because we had made this shift, we did have some flexibility. Obviously, Cost has already had his own business and has been doing that for forever. But now that I, for the first time, was doing it, I had flexibility too. And we decided, like I'm sure a lot of people felt last year and this year, we wanted to get away from the cold weather for a month. And not that Nashville is certainly as cold as some places, but you know, we had our little snowstorms and it was chilly here. So one of the things we really wanted to do, and it was kind of a goal for us, was to go and live somewhere else for a month or so. So we picked beautiful Florida, and we decided we were going to go down there for February and see about this whole like work life, working remotely lifestyle, if that were something that made sense. And particularly because, I had been working here the last 6 months doing a lot of the hard work that comes with starting the business and doing a lot of, lessons learned. So a lot, some things certainly wrong, but I was nervous to leave my clients, since most were based in the Nashville area. But I told myself, if we do this, I've got to, figure out a system that's going to still help me get clients so that the business doesn't lose the little momentum it's gotten. So we put together a plan for Florida. For when I went to Florida, I was like, I've got to have something that's going to be getting me prospects, leads, and meetings so that I don't lose a month of this business, again, being so new. And speaking, again, to our earlier conversation on qualifying prospects, that was really something that was big on my mind, because though I wanted to work, and that was a big part of this for Florida, I wanted to enjoy the beach and go for walks and check out the local ice cream shop and all that kind of stuff. And so I needed an efficient system. I didn't want to be in Florida and have to spend the whole day in in our condo that we had, calling people. That just defeated the whole purpose of this. So that's when I started thinking, okay, how am I going to do this in a way that's not so manual, or a little bit more efficient? And that was kind of the first thing I decided is I've got to be sure I'm only spending my time with qualified prospects. So to get started, what I decided to do was pick 12 dentists. So I chose the category dentist. That was a really easy category for me. Again, it was into my healthcare, and I wanted to focus on social media with these dentists. So I picked 12 that were either in the city we were staying in, which was Palm Beach, or either in surrounding areas of Palm Beach. So I started by sending them an email. And I didn't want the email to look like a branded email, with like a cute little border design. I wanted it to just look like a regular, plain, like I'm cold emailing somebody, but I wanted to see who opened it. Because then I knew right away if somebody actually opened my email, that meant that they were at least getting it and somebody was looking at it, because I didn't have a list to start with. I had to literally Google dentists in the city, find their website, click on their website, try and find an email address. Sometimes I could find it, sometimes I couldn't. If I didn't see it, I'd look for like Facebook. If I saw Facebook, I'd go to their Facebook page, look for an About tab, and look and see if they had an email address there. So this was a total cold list where they had no clue who I was. I had no clue per se who they were. I just looked at their website to try and determine if they had a decent team, decent sized business. I looked at their Facebook, our existing social media, as we talked about before, trying to qualify them, and I just picked 12 because I don't think that if you have a big list, that's great, but I don't think you always have to have a big list. I think that quality can often trump quality can trump quantity. Sorry, I just totally messed that up. But obviously, getting better leads is more important than having a lot of them, from my experience. If you guys followed all of that.
Definitely, they followed. They followed.
Okay,
so you found these 12 manually, just went and looked in the Palm Beach area, and it's really funny because Palm Beach is basically, the county where I live, and so it was a complete shock. I find out, I think just on social media, like that you guys were here, and you guys are like 10 minutes from me. So it was great getting to see you guys and hanging out with you guys, the whole month while you guys were here. And, I remember you telling me, yeah, I'm still working from here, and I'm going to meet with, this dentist next week, and, tomorrow I'm meeting with this other dentist. So it was really cool to see in person. But I had never heard, the beginning part of that story. So you started looking for 12 dentists. You narrowed it down to 12 based upon the criteria, right? So, wanted to go after social media. They had, somewhat of a following maybe, but not very good at all. And you knew you could do something for them. And then hopefully they were qualified in terms of a big enough team or a big enough office and enough business. What happened next?
So then I used MailChimp because that was just the only email platform I knew so that I could track opens. And I'm sure there's potentially some other ways to do that. But I looked and I had 8 opens out of my 12. So initially I said, okay, those other 4 I'm not going to even worry about. We're just going to focus on these 8 who it went through. They received the email. And then I decided I was going to send them like a letter, so to speak, in the mail. And I was doing all of this a couple weeks before we were to move to Florida, because, again, I wanted to have people who, once I got there, they were like, yep, we're ready to meet. And they were, at that point, they were like ready to be closed. I'm not just cold
Okay.
prospects. So the
Yep.
8 people who had opened the email, I then sent them like a letter in the mail, and then I followed up with a phone call. And I probably spoke to, it was probably about 6 of the 8. And out of those, probably about 4 or so were actually decision makers, because you still had, to get through sometimes that receptionist and that filter. But then we ended up having, or I ended up having, I use we a lot because I think more like it's a team of people who do things. But I ended up having 3 people who took us up, or took me up on the offer. And I do think having a good offer is certainly important. If you're just, another email out of the bunch or another phone call, you have to have something that does separate you. And what my offer was I was offering them 30 days of free social media management. And then they could continue on at the price point, and we kind of had a range, different packages that were anywhere from 500 to 1,000 at that point, monthly. So it was basically for them risk-free. They just had to try it, and then that allowed me to get the relationship with them, and to do it. And in my mind too, it gave me a month to evaluate. Is this somebody who I also want to work with once this trial is over too? And I've got people who we still have from Florida who give us now referrals, who are just so sweet and precious. And of course, I've only seen them one time, and so you certainly don't have to like be in the same location to do this stuff, which is awesome. And it just was one of those things that it really made a lot of sense to have a system now that would start qualifying for us by, first of all, who opened the emails. And then that would allow me to focus on those people with any follow-up steps, opposed to trying to get some big list and follow up with everybody when you had no clue who was actually engaged with what you were doing.
Wow, that's awesome. So 12 emails that you cold sent, 8 opens, which is fantastic. You didn't even worry about the unopens or following up with them. So the people that opened, then you sent a letter in the mail to. Was that after a response that you got from those opens? Did you send it to the same contact that you sent the email to? Tell me a little bit about that, if you can.
Yeah, so for the letters, I just sent it to the dentist's name, because I could get their name from the website. And that was who I addressed in the email there. I'm certain some of them probably went to like a reception somewhere. And
Yep.
I just mailed it as soon as I probably waited maybe a day or so after the email was open, and I sent it to him, and then I called another day or two later. And I called and I kind of said, I'm calling to follow up on the information in the mail. And I had positioned it as a gift. I said, our gift to you is 30 months of free social media. And so I could call back and, again, have kind of a niche to say, not just, hey, do you want to buy something? It was like, hey, did you want your free gift? And it gave an easier way to have that conversation and communicate, and them kind of lower their guards a little bit and not have to be on cut you off right away mode. And so, yeah, that was it. I mean, it really, it wasn't anything overly sophisticated, but it was just a matter of figuring out a system that helped me qualify early on prospects who were engaged, so that I wasn't spending too much time and energy, trying to run around and make everyone happy. I could look at the people who were already somewhat interested, who were already opening this email, or if they were opening it multiple times, you knew then that those people were probably even more interested than someone who just opened it once.
Cool, cool. So 6 out of the 8 people you actually ended up speaking to after you sent the mail piece, and you said basically you just call them up and you say, hey, following up on the free gift that I sent you, or the free piece, direct mail piece that I sent you, or the mail that I sent you with the offer to run your guys' social media account for free, and that was helping you get through the gatekeeper, huh?
Yeah, it really did. Because then they would say, oh, what gift, And so right away they've invited you to have the conversation, because typically what happens is most people say, oh, no, we're not interested, and hang up right away when you say you're calling from a business. But all of a sudden they were intrigued because they didn't want to miss out on, potentially a free gift. And so that's when you could have the conversation and kind of see where their interests lie. And sometimes if they would forward it on to the dentist, the call, if you would say, I have a gift for this for the dentist, again, if you could talk with them, that was ultimately the best because they were really going to be the ones paying the check. And if I could get through that gatekeeper who, if it seemed important enough to her to pass me on to that decision maker, it would increase, the likelihood significantly.
I mean, the stats are amazing. I gotta applaud you. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, to start with 12 cold emails and then end up speaking to 6 out of the 8, and then basically, then close 3 of those. I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was really pleased and excited with it as well because then, literally, the first week we moved down to Florida, I had a meeting. We got there the first day, I had a meeting the second day, so I was driving around trying to find the office and locations and, get everything worked out. The client's still down there. They're constantly like, when are you coming back down to see us? I mean, it's just, again, it's a great relationship that came from having, absolutely no tie not only to them but to their city or state. And so again, it really allowed to cross over those boundaries that I really did want to cross, and it allowed me to keep momentum going, and then think about how can I apply this now after the fact. Now that I figured out that having a system that helps me know who's engaged, who's qualified, having that system makes a big difference as far as then going after the right people. Because if you can do that, you can start raising your price too, and you start getting referrals from happy customers. And referrals are amazing. That's, of course, my favorite thing because that's the easiest thing to do when it comes to getting clients.
Definitely, that's awesome. Wow. I'm just still shocked at the numbers. This is the first time that I've heard them, so I just keep looking at them on my desk here. I wrote them all down, and it's fantastic. So can you tell us a little bit about what the direct mail piece said, if you don't mind, if that's not too close and personal to your business?
No, it's not close and personal at all. I really barely remember. I went through and got the, because this has been about a year ago now, I went and re-looked at the email and got the 12 email addresses and checked all that stuff. But I have sent so many different things in the mail, I can't remember exactly what I sent to them, but I'm sure it was probably just a letter basically restating the email I sent them that said,
Yep.
hey, we have a free gift for you. It's social media. Here's what we're doing, and I kind of bullet pointed that out again. So it was pretty much a copy of
Yep.
what I said. And again, I didn't have a graphic designer do it or anything fancy. I mean, I just did it, and printed it and sent that in. I did use Costas's little trick with the envelopes that stand out just to help them get a
Yep.
little further in the process. Maybe having like a bright colored or some type of envelope might help it not get passed by. But even when I called, of course, people don't really know what you're talking about. So at first they're like, oh, what did you send me in the mail? Or let me check and see if we've got it. So again, having something that kind of sticks out or telling them to look for. But if not, again, even if they didn't get it or they haven't seen it, or don't know what you're talking about, it's still a point where now they're engaging in a conversation back and they're asking you questions like, well, what did it look for? And you can tell they want to talk to you opposed to just like hanging up the phone and saying we're not interested.
Awesome. Cool. So I think that kind of sums it up. Besides, when are you coming back to Florida?
Hopefully pretty soon. We missed
Cool.
it.
So obviously the cool thing is just to see the progression for me. I know that you had left your agency and that you were doing your own thing. You started your own local agency, and I remember Costas telling me how proud of he was of you and how you were just working it, and you had picked up a handful of new clients. Doing it the hard way essentially, right? And working your tail off, and then to see you in Florida here and like, yeah, I have this meeting and I have that meeting and this one next week was super cool for me to see. And then obviously, you closing those deals and you making it happen. And I love the system just because, like you said, it pays attention to the people that that you can actually get a hold of. right? I mean, how many times in sales are we spending so much attention on people that just, not that they don't matter, but we can't get a hold of. So essentially, we're just wasting our time, and it's making us, feel worse about the results that we're essentially getting.
Yeah, you're totally right, Joe, because you just don't know how much of that I did, of going through, and again I would hand scrape, email addresses and all of that, and I would send people emails, monthly, and I felt like I had to make it really cute and brand it and format it, and so it was a lot of effort. And I really don't think any of those turned into anything for me. I hate to say it, but that personally was not successful for me. It was having to find a system that would help me qualify it more at the beginning. And of course, there was still a process, of me talking and closing the deal and everything with them. But just anything that helps you fish out who not to focus on and help you figure out, okay, this is where you should put your energy, your time. Anything like that makes a really big difference, I think.
I didn't have my mic on there. I said I think that's it for my questions. I just want to say thanks. Today was a cool inspiration. I know that everybody on our list is just going to love it. Any last thoughts or words on the system, or if you change something up, or any just tips or tricks for everybody?
Yeah, and well, the first thing I would say is if there is somebody who is thinking of doing this for themselves, and branching away and doing your own business, don't be afraid. You can always go back, and that kept me longer than it probably should have. Luckily, I left before I got miserable, but life's too short to do that. And I started trying to do stuff before I left. So if you're in that boat, start this now. Start building up that base so that you can leave and feel good about it. And if you're working for a company, of course, typically sales, the more commission you get, the more money you make. And so these are good things to help you, even if you are working for a company or you want to do this for a client. But I think it's just to do it. I mean, that's the biggest thing. There's so many things people can do to get results. But if you can find something that really helps you, that is more effective, then it's up to you to apply it and do it. And so that's my biggest thing I would say, is you just have to take action on it. If you know something is going to work, and try it, and then you refine it too. Like, I might do things a little bit different in my offer next time to test it and see what works best. But it's just refining that system, applying it, and taking action.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, Karla. I really appreciate it. I know you're going to be an inspiration for everybody. So guys, do me a favor. After you're done watching this, just click on the link below, and you guys will see part 2 of this interview, where we actually walk through the piece of software that was created around this system that Karla built in order to do this process and to really automate this process. So I will be going through this step by step with you guys. Plus, I'll be giving away some swipes and some templates that we're actually using and that we're testing with the system. And got a nice, cool little bonus to announce. We've actually fully integrated it with analytic call tracking as well. So again, just take a look at the link below when you're done watching this video, and be ready for a big surprise. It's really, really slick. So thanks again, Karla. I appreciate it. Thanks for spending the time with all of us.
Thank you so much, Joe.
See ya.